this one guy. He was he's a production assistant for HBO, and he's on the set of, I don't know if you've seen it, Succession. An amazing show, probably my favorite show on TV right now.
Really?
Yeah,
A bold
got it.
statement.
Yeah, I would say so. It's only on they're on season 3, but I would go as far and say that it is probably my favorite thing on TV at the moment. That's still producing more episodes and everything.
Dude, I got this app called Backstage. And I
Okay.
think what's one thing that I've been doing a lot lately is it's really important for me being so young, trying to like throw stuff at the wall and seeing what sticks. And what I mean by that is like I don't think anyone coming out of college or anyone, that starts their life, like truly starts their life, knows right off the bat what they want to do, right? And like some people might, but I think most people have to try to figure it out along the way. And my thing is like, I keep throwing stuff at the wall. I got Man Meets Modern, as we're on right now. And I got, the podcast. I've been writing comedy, like some like just stand-up skit just to see if I like it, and like just been trying to do different things to see what I really enjoy.
I think that is huge too, because at this point with COVID and everything going on, I mean, you have a great amount of freedom to really do whatever it is you have an interest in. That's how I started my podcast. I mean, I've always talked about starting my own, never really did. And that was because I was so bogged down by classes and eventually work. When you work all those hours throughout the day, you never really find a great amount of time to do so. And while I am working a decent amount of hours, I was really able to bring what I wanted to do into the real world. And so that's why I started Useless.degrees. And you're actually very spot on when it comes to people graduating college and they're not really sure what to do. And so that's always been my biggest piece of advice for people, is that they have to continue to try things, whether or not they have an already underlying interest in it, but just to see if you're good at it or not. That's always been something that I've been thankful for. Like, I'm able to figure out what I'm good at and what I'm not good at, so I can eventually know whether or not I should take this newly formed passion somewhere.
Right. And like, how many people do you actually think like what your degree sets you up to do? How many people do you think actually do that? And I would assume it's a larger percentage than zero, like zero, obviously. But I feel like more people do things that don't pertain to their degree than people that do things that pertain to their degree, if that makes sense.
Oh yeah, and that's the basis of my podcast. I mean, I look at my parents, and my dad studied golf management in college, and right now he's just like one of the lead salesmen for commercial flooring. And I look at my mom, and she studied to be a biology teacher, and now she's the director of human resources at the University of Michigan. Like, you look at the contrast between what they studied in school and what they're doing now is just so significant. And that is what I want to hear from all the people that I bring onto my show. Everyone's story is different. Everyone has a different path, and everyone definitely has an opinion on what they studied. And I even did like one of those ask a question on Instagram on my Useless Degrees page, and I asked, "What do you think is the most useless degree?" And I got just a variety of different responses. Everything
I
from
looked at them. Yeah.
everything from gender studies to theater to any foreign language. And I'm just wondering, yeah, you're right. What are you going to do with something like that? But at the same time, you never know. I mean, if someone is going to spend all those years learning, eventually they're going to find where they can implement that into what they do for a living, whether that's a 9 to 5 or whether that's freelance, contract, anything. It could all fall into something, I feel, at the end of the day.
I got a funny story about that. But before that, go ahead and yeah, talk about your what you got going on, man. Talk about yourself, talk about your podcast, give it out. Where can people find you? Go ahead, promote it. Promote it the
Yeah,
fuck up.
yeah, definitely. So I have a podcast called Useless Degrees, and this show is where I interview people that are excelling in fields that is different than what they studied in college. And throughout each episode, we talk about career pivots. We talk about how they like their current job and how they got there specifically, as well as circle back to how they feel about the value of their college degree. And it is a show that I have just been very passionate with, and you can find it on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Google Podcasts, anywhere you get your podcasts, anywhere you name it. It is going to be on there. I come out with new episodes every Monday. Always looking for guests. I mean, I got episodes that are already set for each Monday for probably the next month. So I'm definitely looking forward to really getting more content out there and really keeping people engaged with this topic, because it is something that everybody has an opinion on and has quite a bit to say about it at the end of the day.
Yeah, man, you're killing it, dude. You have probably you've been, you released your first episode what? Oh, 2 weeks ago
It was like, yeah, a couple of weeks ago, I want to
when it
say. It
came
was
available on
toward the end of,
everything.
yeah, toward
Yeah.
the end of October is when I really got started. And so I think right now, this upcoming Monday, I will be releasing, I think, my fifth episode. And so far, I've gained a great amount of support from everybody.
You've got like twice as many episodes as me. It's tough, man. I never thought it would be so hard to actually, for me at least. I mean, maybe your network might be a little better than mine, but it is hard, especially my time change, to get people on the show and on the podcast. And I think time change does have a lot to do with that, because most of the people I know are 3 hours ahead of me, right? So it's like, okay, I'm available at this time. People are like, oh, that's 8 p.m. I'm like either getting drunk or like I'm like, relaxing, eating dinner. Like I can't do it then. And so it's like, oh, fuck, when do I do it? But yeah, you're killing it, man. You're 500 people have viewed it. That's awesome.
Yeah, and we're constantly growing, and I just really like to see where this can take me. And it's interesting because you talk about, yes, there at first there was a struggle when it comes to getting people interested on the show. I mean, I reached out to a couple of people at first, and they were down for it. And then eventually scheduling conflicts came into play, such as you just suggested. I mean, I imagine the time schedule definitely can throw some people off. And the way I do it is, I work throughout the day and then I podcast at night. And that's at least how I do it. And all the people that I have talked with are pretty much just winding down. So they're really kind of in a relaxed mindset. And so I think that that is perhaps the best way to catch these people. I'm able to really get them when they're able to have their thoughts all to themselves after just a long day, and they're able to really just sit down and have a conversation, as opposed to worrying about the last spreadsheet that they were working on, or the bottom line of whatever business that they're working for, or pleasing the boss, or for that matter. It really comes down to, I would say, targeting them specifically. When I reach out to people, I reach out because I'm genuinely curious on what they are doing. And that is what's really going to bring people in, because at the end of the day, a lot of people love to talk about themselves. I mean, everybody that I've reached out to at least has some sort of entrepreneurial mindset, and so they're always trying to promote their own brand, and they often have this become your brand personality. And podcasting is a great way to get that out there in terms of content and really get your inner thoughts out there. So luckily it's been wonderful. And my network, as you mentioned earlier, yeah, I mean, I would say that as far as people that I know in the state of Michigan, where I'm from, that's that's where it all starts. And within probably 2 episodes, I had a girl from Boston reach out to me. Never met her before, had no mutual connections for that matter. I had her co-founder reach out to me and said, "Hey, I like your concept. You should interview our co-founder, because she was a computer science major and now she owns her own clothing line where she manufactures suits for women that have pockets, because apparently that's not really a thing," which I thought was amazing. So I reached out to her. We had a whole conversation, and the episode is coming out not this upcoming Monday, but the next Monday. And so it's amazing. Just at the end of the day, I'm having conversations with people that I enjoy talking to, and I'm throwing it out there for people to enjoy as well.
That's huge, man. You're inspiring me listening to you talk about it, because I don't have I think my biggest weakness as a person is like I'm not organized at all. I don't have shit scheduled out. I don't have like everything's seat of my pants. What I hit you up to do this, and it wasn't even like a last minute. Like to me, it wasn't a last minute thing. I hit you up to do this like what 2 days ago, like
Mhm.
so like that's how I am with all of it, right? It's like I shoot a message, yo, now's the time, and I gotta get better at that. But I think there's something I just joined. I think you would really like it. It's called Wildcast. And for anybody that does a podcast or is doing a podcast or whatever, wants to be a guest on a podcast, you can go here, create a profile for yourself as either a podcast itself or a guest. And basically, it's like building a podcast network. So you can be on other people's podcasts and other people can be on your podcast. And you can find guests if you need to find guests. Great concept. Whoever thought of Wildcast, wonderful job. I'm a huge fan. I just got it a couple days ago, so I haven't like uh, matched or whatever you want to call it. Almost think of like match with people. I haven't even looked at it that much, but I think the concept's wonderful.
You're right. And I've never heard of that. So I'm interested in getting into that because, like you said, I mean, there are people that want to grow their own podcast. And in order to do that, you got to hop on someone else's podcast for a guest too. At the end of the day, it really comes down to the content that you're throwing out there. And I guess the way that I've been doing it lately is a lot of Facebook groups. I've noticed a lot of my audiences are generated through Instagram and Facebook. And it might be just because of the amount of followers that I have, and I'm just throwing content out there for people to tune into. But yeah, it really is just networking within the podcast community. And I didn't even realize like how big it was until I really started to get this thing going. I mean, there's so many shows all out there, and it really comes down to just making your show stand out above all the other ones.
Right. And majority of yeah, majority of my content's advertised on like Instagram and Facebook as well. It's just easier. Twitter is not meant for advertisement, in my opinion. Like people do advertise on Twitter, but I feel like more times than not, I scroll through Instagram and Facebook and I'm like, oh, let me check that out. Oh, let me check that out. Whereas like Twitter's like I follow my certain set of people, and if they retweet something, I'll look into it. But it's not like oh, scrolling through random promotion, let me check that out. I think that's happened to me like once on Twitter, but it happens to me almost every day on like Instagram or Facebook. I groups are huge, man. I created that. Anybody that's not a part of it, Man Meets Modern Success Room, request to be a part of it. I created that group for two reasons. One, like it's easier if you can signal out your audience and your already supporters, right? People that already support you. It's easier for me to get content to them that they won't miss it, right? It's posted to a room that they can go to every day. Uh, and two, I want to just create a safe place for men to talk about stuff, right? And like that's why I wish more people would talk in it. A lot of the time, it's me starting conversation, which is fine. But I want like if someone was like, "Yo, I'm having trouble in my relationship," they felt comfortable enough saying that to then get advice from other people on their relationship or something like along that natural lines. And that's why, I have the certain questions I do that they ask before you can join the group, and stuff like that, man. And like, anyway, it's back to the main point. It's huge, man. Facebook, Instagram, creating the groups, they're all big. They're all huge factors when it comes to trying to build something.
You're right. And Twitter is probably more conversational, whereas Instagram and Facebook are more look at this, and check this out. So all mediums are really great when it comes to getting your brand out there. I mean, you could personalize it in various ways. I mean, the conversations I've had with people that are really deep into social media careers, there's so much going on in it that you and I might not even be able to scratch the surface on. It's all there, and a lot of it is very carefully crafted just to really stick with the Twitter-esque audience along with Instagram and Facebook. And with your success room, I think that is amazing because with men, the conversations could range from a plethora of things. And I think that the camaraderie among everybody is what really is going to keep them together and moving forward. If they have support from their boys, they are going to do whatever the hell they want. And
Yeah.
if they get that approval, they will for sure go for it. Sure, they can make up their own mind and everything. But I mean, there are some times where I struggle with certain decisions that I've made, or whether that's a pursuit for a relationship, a current relationship, anything, there are questions among the minds of men that need to be answered and talked about. And having a success focused group in particular is, I think, probably the best thing that you've done for your brand to really grow it and foster a community.
Right, man. And like my biggest thing, it's so important for men have to feel. I would almost think of men as like a skittish dog. Whereas like they have to feel super comfortable before they really open up about anything. And even then it's hard, right? It's that alpha male mentality. It's like, I'm not weak, I'm not this, I'm not that. And sorry.
Good.
Um, I'm not this, I'm not weak, I'm not this, I'm not that. And you have to create an environment where they don't feel like they need to pressure that, right? They don't feel like they need to push that concept. And so that's what, that's the real basis. And that's why, I call it the success room. And I want people to feel they can be successful. Also, it's fine to be funny. It's okay to be funny, but I don't want anyone being like funny at the cost of another person, right? That's not the point of it.
Well, speaking of funny, tell me a little bit about this comedy sketch writing that you're doing. I'd like to
Yeah.
hear it. I have thoughts on comedy from all different perspectives, whether that's the comedian itself or where comedy is going in our future. Because my God, there's a lot to talk about with comedy.
Well, I think that's awesome, man. Like, I think the hardest part is like I started doing comedy. I will be fully transparent because I listen to Joe Rogan every day and I listen to him talk with other comedians about how fucking fun it is to be a comedian. And he is 100% correct in the fact that it is way harder than people think. That's the first thing. That's the first thing I want to make out. Like, I like to think of myself as a funny person and I try to sit there and write jokes. And it's tough, man. It takes me an hour sometimes just to get one joke, just to get one joke that's okay. Right. And like not even like killing it. Um, and so it's tough. And I love doing it though, man, because like I performed it to my friends, and it's what's cool is if you're comfortable enough with the people you're around, they'll be like, I don't think that joke was funny, right? And a lot of it comes with delivery. So I have a joke about I was like, it goes like, when you're getting old, like, how you can really tell when you're getting old. I no longer need to check when I wipe my ass anymore. I don't. I don't, right? You can take a shit and go, it's about 4 wipes and be good. You don't even need to look. You're so experienced at wiping your own ass that you don't even need to check and see if the ass is clean.
Yeah, the way that I determine whether or not I've gotten old is whenever I make a sound when I sit down or stand up. If I have that "Ugh," whenever I
Yeah,
sit down or when I'm getting up, that's when I immediately know that, my God, like, why is my body just giving up on me already?
definitely. Yeah, and like so like that's one of my jokes, right? And like that's not bad. It's funny, but it needs more structure to it, right? It needs a development. And then my whole skit's based around red flags. I don't know if you remember me posting those question about red flags. It's
Yeah.
kind of based around that. Um, and just trying to be, okay, what are red flags you see in people, right? And kind of goes from there. The very first one I thought of, and the most famous one, uh, red flag. If you walk into a dude's apartment and all he has is a dog and a jar of peanut butter, that's a red fucking flag. That's creepy, right? So yeah, and that's kind of where it's at. I only have like 5 jokes written, but it's tough, man. It is way harder to write them. And then the worst part is I have like a 3-person audience to test them on, right? There's 3 people I hang out with here in California. And so sometimes it's like I have to like laugh at myself, which I've always laughed at myself to like get them to be like, oh yeah, like that was funny. Like
That's what I was gonna ask is you're in California and there's just all sorts of comedians out there that are essentially trying to get their feet wet within that community. You look at, I mean, people like Trevor Wallace, who is just out there trying to make everybody laugh with the videos running around LA, just shooting some funny shit and stuff. It really seems like that whole culture is all in LA. And having you all the way from the Midwest, I think that is something that could really add a really good touch to it down the line.
oh yeah, and like the thing with the videos is the videos are hard too. And I think the other hard part about the videos is the shit that's funny, like what Trevor Wallace does. For someone like me who has a job that I can't afford to lose, I like my job. It pays well. It's a great job. I can't throw myself out there like that, right? I can't do the dumb. I'm a salesperson. I can't do some of that. I would have to, which this is part of, if you want to achieve your dreams, you got to be willing to just go for it. And, maybe it's me being scared, but is that real fear, right? I can't do what Trevor Wallace does because there's a fair chance that I have very big backlash if I try to start doing what Trevor Wallace does. And like Jimmy Tatro is a big one, but he started in college, right? So like he had developed a base and was like, yo, I'm making good money off being funny right now. I'm making videos. So like I'll just keep doing that out of college.
I like Jimmy Tatro's approach when it comes to stuff like that. The shit that he was doing when he was in college with the frat videos, that is something that is resonating with people within Trevor Wallace videos right now. And if you think about it, Jimmy Tatro was making those videos like a long ass time ago, way before we even got to
They're still
college.
funny.
Yeah, they still kill me. I mean, I remember like when I was in a fraternity and I was watching some of those videos just to get a quick laugh whenever I needed it. I mean, it's so relatable because of just how well he knows that demographic
Yeah.
and he fit right in perfectly. And I think that his post college, I mean, I know he didn't graduate or anything, but I mean, he went on to do some great stuff. I mean, he had that Netflix show, American Vandal, and then he pops up in movies all the time too.
Bill
Bad
Roses, Semi
Education.
Valleys is still popular.
Yeah, he's still making an appearance when it comes to acting. So I guess when it comes to comedy, yeah, like the acting route is where it ultimately takes people. And like I mentioned, I mean, you're right in the middle of all that action with, probably not too far from Hollywood.
Yeah, man, acting's cool. Acting is like I said, I got that backstage app. You can kind of go and look for gigs, and like the toughest part about it is I think the toughest part about being an actor is actually getting yourself, and if people are actors out there, this is my assumption. I don't act. I haven't gotten a gig yet. Um, but you have to try to put yourself in that character and get what they want through a video right now. And so that's hard, right? Like that's hard to like you need to set yourself up and you're trying to like you're in the comfort of your own home and maybe you have to try and act like, you're someone who has struggled with poverty their whole life, but you never have and you're living in a real nice ass apartment. And so like that's tough for you to get in that character, right? And like you can't really dive into the role, I would say. And so it's hard, man. It is cutthroat. I would love to do it. I am an attention whore to the T. I love people. Hey, look at me. It's great. I refused to get a TikTok for the longest time. And I have one now for Mad Meets Modern. If anyone, if you want to check it out, I made a video before we started this podcast. And that's where talk about videos being hard. They are hard. I think my video is okay. I don't know if it's hilarious, but it's relatable.
That's funny you mentioned how much you love attention. And I'll be honest, I hate attention. And that has really like shocked a lot of people whenever I mention it. And they're just like, but you're such a bubbly person. You're so talkative and you are really the center of attention sometimes, with whatever room you enter. You just kind of you have this almost kind of bravado that just brings out like a side of you that gets people drawn to you for some reason. And I'm just like, yeah, but at the end of the day, like I don't want all the attention to be on me. I don't want to be I guess the one that's looked at for all sorts of things. I'm more of like a behind the scenes type of person, like one quote that resonated with me was work in silence and shine in public. And when it comes to public speaking or anything in that nature, I'm all for it. I could totally kill it, no problem. But that's when I have to. And when it comes to just casual conversations, I mean, yeah, I'll bring about, a funny side of me, or I'll connect with people on some sort of personal level, whether that might be all sorts of things. But it really is just attention that is such a big problem for so many people. And I think that when it comes to relationships, it also interferes heavily because I guess it just comes down to how much attention is too much attention.
Well, attention's tough, right? Attention's a drug. When you don't have it, and this is where like who can control it, right? I know people that literally will not shut the fuck up because they always need attention. I talk a lot, but there are people that like you just want to go shut your fucking mouth. Like you know what I mean? Like
Yeah.
close it. But it's a drug, right? They constantly need that. Like look at me, look at me, look at me. And that's society's going that way. in general. But like there are people like that, and I love attention. It also is brooding sometimes. And what I mean by that is, you know, if you have attention and people also enjoy giving you that attention, you know, they think giving you the attention's worth their while, it eventually becomes almost taxing. You know, there's times where I sit and there'll be nights I don't want to go out, and I'll sit in my room and I almost pep talk myself up because the way I feel about myself is I feel like a wind up toy, right? I feel like people just want to crank me up, wind them up, wind them up, wind them up, wind them up, so I can just go all night and I'm your good time. And then people start relying on you for their good time. And that's tough. That's like, speaking from experience, that's a tough like thing to deal with, because there's times like I'm not on, right? There's times I don't want to be other people's good time. I just want to sit there in silence and enjoy my day. And like I can't, right? I gotta like, you gotta put that little, what is it, that old wind up tool in and crank, and because you want to have a good time and other people want to have a good time. And it's like, you start suffering, right? You start like, oh man, like, when am I ever going to get a time within my own thoughts? And it's tough. It's a tough thing to deal with.
Hate to get into a bit of a more depressing topic, but going back to comedy, that's probably why Robin Williams killed himself.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
mean, like,
That's
you think about a guy who has spent so many years making people laugh, with his own mental health and his own well-being, he didn't really focus too much on making himself happy. He was more so worried about everybody else. And after a while, I mean, I can't imagine how draining that must be.
Well, rest in peace, Robin Williams. And yeah, I think that's a huge thing when you look at people who are center of attention, who do a lot of drugs or do kill themselves or something happens, right? I think a huge part of that is like you are always trying to please other people. And the famous comedians back in the 80s who were dying from speed, right? It's hard to be that funny all the goddamn time, right? So they're all speeded up and like just being hilarious, but like it's
Yeah, they
because
meet
they're
for the first time, and the first thing that they ask you is to just tell them a joke, make them laugh right on the spot. I mean,
yeah,
I can't imagine the stress.
right. And it's crazy. And you never get that time. The other thing is you make other people so happy, and you can't but you're not happy yourself and not happy within your life yourself. So it almost works against you. Kind of like when people are depressed and they see other people happy, it makes you a little more depressed, right? Now think of being the center of being depressed and also being the center of creating joy for other people.
Right. It's an overwhelming mindset. It's an overwhelming just series of instances that really just blow your mind in all sorts of directions. Because yeah, you're right. You do want to make people happy, but it's so much harder to just find that time to make yourself happy at the end of the day. And that's what it ultimately boils down to.
Yeah, and like at a certain point, when do you think you stop and go, I need to work on myself?
That's why it's so difficult sometimes for men to make their own decisions because like we kept mentioning throughout the show so far, it really is the approval from other people, mostly men as well. I mean, if you get a group of guys together, as I mentioned earlier, and they agree that somebody should go on to do something, eventually they'll do it. It really is that reinforcement of just support from everybody that is going to ultimately lead to decision making on the men's behalf.
I mean, yeah, look at the most primitive version of that, right? Is you got your group of boys and you're trying to cheer your one to go talk to a girl, right? That's the most primitive version of what you just described. And I bet you 9 times out of 10, people have went to go talk to that girl strictly because their boys hyped them up. Probably
I
10
can
times out of
I
10,
can
but there might be
definitely
that one
agree.
outlier that was like, I was already gonna go do it, you know what I mean, or whatever, or never went and did it. So like 9 times out of 10, I guarantee you, some people only have the confidence when you have a backing, and a backing is huge. People don't realize how big support is. I was I was on TikTok, and there's this psychologist that does TikTok, and she talks about independence. This is something I struggle with too. Uh, I force myself to be so independent and so unneeding of other people that it leads to isolation and also leads to me lacking going after things, right? I have no one, at times it feels like you have no one's in your corner. And so you hold yourself back, but you also never ask for help to achieve what you want to achieve, right? I'm not one to ask for help. I don't, I don't ask for help often. I want to know that I can do it myself and this is all on me. And this is, this is my thing and this is what I'm doing. And it's counterproductive, right? And like, if I feel like there's a lot of decisions, that I would have made differently if I would have had someone there just being like, keep going, you can do it, almost a coach, right? Like, just keep going, a team, like, you got this, you step in the box, you're hitting a home run, like, like, and yeah, and that's tough, it's you
That
need
is a
that.
very blurred line too, because we all want to be independent. We all want to take control of our own decisions, but we should also not be afraid to ask for help in any sort of circumstance. I mean, if I have any slight doubt of something that involves something that I'm doing, I will not hesitate to ask if I'm doing something right. And a lot of that can boil down to work related situations, especially if you're in the middle of training for whatever job that you get. Of course, I'm going to ask for help. I'm going to be asking questions left and right. So I really hope that they're able to put up with me at the end of the day. But there is something that needs to be said about independence because it can only go so far. If you have this mentality, if you have this attitude that you can do anything that you want, that's wonderful. But it really can help with a community of like minded people that can offer that support and elevate you to that next step as well. I think that is something that people should prioritize as well.
Definitely. I don't think you're wrong at all. I mean, the famous role in movies, right? You see the villain and it's like, "No, it's all me, right? Like I got it. Like I can do it." And it's like, it's just like so self-sufficient that it's collapsing, right? Your car needs oil changes. You need someone to put gas into it. Your vehicles need help. Everything in this world, my plants need me to water them. Everything needs assistance of some kind.
Right. And the thing that I would like to see within people, I like seeing them succeed. I like seeing them accomplish stuff, but I also want to see them struggle in a sense that probably shouldn't come off in the way that I might make it sound at first, but I think that seeing how they handle certain circumstances is what is really going to give them the credit and it's going to earn my respect. If they are throwing curveballs left and right and they're able to bounce back and be better than ever than they were before, I think it goes beyond respect for me. That is something that I can really commend people for. And like I said, I'm all for people showing that they have grown to be the best person that they can possibly be, and it's only uphill from there. But I don't mind watching the struggle. I always root for the underdog. A lot of people like to suck off Tom Brady and everything. And while he's a great guy, but I kind of want to see somebody that could take him down. Even same
Yeah.
with Tiger Woods or something. Yeah, he's the best guy to ever
Who's
he's
beating
the
them?
best guy to ever do it, but I'm also rooting for somebody to show him up. I want to
I'll
see
say it.
how he reacts to that competition.
I'll say it right now. And quote me on this. I've said it my whole life. Struggle breeds perseverance and success. You cannot, I think it's very important, unless everything has been set up perfectly for it, you cannot be totally self, you cannot be successful without having some type of struggle. And what I mean by that is successful in a whole as a person. I mean, think about those people, what's called trust fund kids, right? Who create their own business, but oftentimes have issues because they have no sense of whole or worth within themselves. And struggle, I think, creates that, right? You know why you're doing it, you know what you want to do, and you know you've gone through hell to get there. So you feel it more, right? You feel that accomplishment. That accomplishment is you. It becomes your embodiment, right? That's huge. That's people I 100% think struggle breeds perseverance and success.
I agree 100% on that. And like I mentioned, I'm all for watching people succeed, but it's the curveballs that's really going to earn my respect at the end of the day.
Well, if you root for people to fail, like unless they're a terrible human being, you're a terrible human being. Like, you know what I mean? Like if you're consistently rooting for people to be like, I hope that they fucking end up on the street, like that's absurd, right? Like you should never like I don't think I care enough to be involved in other people's life to root against them that much. But
Mhm.
also like that's just like you are dropping yourself to that level.
When people boast about something that is very exciting about their life to you, are you immediately going to respond with your overwhelming support, or because the way I respond to some of these situations, if somebody is going crazy about an opportunity that they just came across and whatnot, and something that is genuinely exciting, I can't help but just ask like difficult follow-up questions that can ultimately stop them in their tracks and realize, huh, well, I didn't really think that far. You ever get in those conversations by chance?
I think it depends on how they come at me. You know, if it's someone that I know has been having a tough time or I know has been working hard towards it and they come at me with some good ass news that they got in their life, I'm excited, man. I have zero questions. I don't dive any bit into it. It's yeah, great, good for you. Let's go celebrate. Like, you know, but if someone comes to me that always comes to me and is like, yeah, I got this going on now. Yeah, I got this going on now. Like, I honestly, I'll either I don't know. I'm pacifist in a way to where like it's not worth my time to ask questions and argue because I just don't give a shit. You know what I mean? Like I just like I don't care about what you have going on. So I'll just be like, oh yeah, that's cool. Like, you know, and then like go
You're right.
about
It
my night.
is, yeah, it's the delivery from the person's perspective on and how they're approaching you and saying, "Yeah, check this out. Look what I'm doing. This is what's going down." You're right. I actually see your point quite clearly with that.
Yeah, and like, you know, that's huge. And the person like but yeah, there are times I'm definitely like, did you? Did you really? Are you for real? Like, you know what I mean? Like, I definitely have doubted people and called them out on it. I think more often than not, though, people that do that all the time, like no matter if you're coming with positive nude or not, or the people that want to just see you fail, I think go back to having that overly adjusted alpha mentality, right? They always have to be on top. And because they always have to be on top, they will find any way to stomp you to the bottom and claw their way to the top. I have a friend like that. Great friend, like I guess like he is a good friend. I love, you know, great friend, but he is very much I know, no, I can do that better than you all the time, everything, right? And so like I understand some people need that to be successful, but I think there's times where it's just like, yo, shut the fuck up. You know what I mean?
Right. It's almost like you're asking for somebody to challenge you, and then you better be prepared for follow-up questions. At this point, you're a politician.
Right, right. God, dude, politics is crazy. So hold on. Everything that's going on, fucking crazy, right?
It is something that I don't think we've ever really seen before. I've talked to boomers about this and they say the same thing. They say they've never seen and everything so divided. They've never seen people come down to something like this. And you could argue over the years, I mean, we've had presidents that people were divided over and whatnot, but to this extent in particular, and especially from our perspective, being college grads and being on campus in the midst of a Trump campaign and then graduating in the midst of another Trump campaign, I mean, that's something that needs to be said too. I mean, we're like at a very interesting time. I mean, I hate using the same basic COVID words, unprecedented times, interesting, weird times. I fucking hate saying I fucking hate saying like all of that stuff. But at the end of the day, I mean, that's what it is.
It's crazy. I was talking to my uncle today. I'm like, I'm really just sick of seeing old rich ass people up in positions of power and career politicians in a position of power. There's no reason that you should be able to be in a position of power for 40 years. There isn't. There's no reason you should be in a position of power for like 10 years.
Why is
And
that? Why do you think that?
I think when you're in a position of power for that long and your sole job was a politician, you then detach yourself from the situation. I guess what I mean by that is when you implement policies and you're voting on policies, you no longer understand directly how it's affecting people because you've detached yourself from that so much, right? Because shit happens different in Washington. When you become a senator and stuff, you make money. So what affects you is way different than what affects your average American. And you detach yourself. I think to be a politician, you should have to, at least one of high standing, you should have to have held somewhat of a normal job. And what we define as a normal job there can be some loose ends on that. But I don't mean like a job at 18, right? I don't mean, or like a job at 16 where you were a busser. I mean, had a job, lived in like a house or an apartment, like we're a contributing member of a normal contributing member of society for the American United States. What is your average American? You should have to live like that at least for a couple of years before, or like that, or like fellow Americans before you come and are a senator or any position of power. Because I think, like I said, it detaches you from the situation. You no longer understand what you're doing because you no longer can put yourself in the position of who it affects.
Well, then what do you think about the people that, like you mentioned, either come from a family of politics that worked in politics for so long because they have that connection and they've had that lifelong blood of people constantly working for whatever community that they're serving or whatever state for that matter? I mean, what do you think about the people that were pretty much born to do something like this because they were within a family that got this going?
I think it's ridiculous. Look at the Kennedys and the Clintons. Hasn't ended out too great for them. But honestly, if that is the case, and maybe forcing everyone to have like a normal job, normal American lifestyle for a second, what people have vast varieties of normal. I think maybe it'd be better if we had every politician work has to do like almost like a study abroad, but it's not abroad, right? You have to go and work before you start your term. You have to work in each class for a month. You know, you need to go and sit at a construction site and talk with construction workers and understand their lifestyle. Then you can go sit with salespeople and data analysts or car salesmen who are living that middle class lifestyle, and you understand what they're doing. Then you can go sit towards the top of a business, almost like an internship, and really understand what their thoughts are, because you need to have a well-rounded view of what's going on, man. Right now people make decisions for themselves, right? The world has become selfish. The people in the Senate, the people in the House of Reps, a lot of them, majority of them are making decisions based on themselves, right? Or based on their friends. And I want people to be able to go, okay, I grew up rich, but I spent time with construction workers. And, one of my good people that I met that was a construction worker, he grew up, his whole family's been blue collar, and the one thing that really bothers him in America is this. And like, you like really, and not in like a bullshit political way, right? Not like I hung out with construction workers, like a genuine, like I made a friend, and I don't know it, but I understand what's important to them.
And it's so hard to please 100% of the people 100% of the time. And yeah, I agree. You look at the contrast between a ditch digger and a high up politician. The politician is obviously going to look for the best interests within the economy when it comes to really growing jobs. And the last thing that might be on their mind is that ditch digger. And they're going to find a hard time really cultivating a relationship with that person because, yeah, they're so busy pleasing a lot of the big picture, but they tend to lose track of the lower end people or the struggling class. But that's also kind of blown out of proportion too. At what point do you focus more on the struggling people or do you concentrate more on maintaining the successes of middle class people or even upper class, or if you're focused on taking from the rich to level out the middle class?
I think I think we can't claim ourselves to be a just society without putting focus on those who are struggling. And a lot of times, the way I equivalent struggling is like being dealt a bad hand in poker. You can't do shit about a bad hand in poker, right? There's nothing you can't ask for new cards, and that's not your fault. And so I think you need to be able to focus. There's no reason that the top 1% should hold 50% of the wealth in this country. There's no reason. If I was in the top 1%, I still would not have a problem. And I guess I'm not there, so people can be mad at me for this, but I don't think I would have a problem being taxed more to help out those who aren't. At the end of the day, if you make $1 million and get a 40% tax on that $1 million, you still make more than 99% of America.
And so many
Six
people are pissed off at those billionaires too. And I recognize exactly what you're saying too, because I agree. If I were making that amount of money, I mean, yeah, it would suck to get taxed a little bit more, but at the end of the day, you're still at the top, man. You're still running the show at this
that
point.
you just don't get a new car, you know?
Yeah,
Like
yeah. The people that are complaining about all of these rich people, what do you think would they be like if the roles were reversed? If the college student, the very opinionated college student, is bitching at Bezos for having so much money, what if that broke college student actually had some deep pockets and had quite the bank account on them? I mean, I'm pretty sure that their thoughts would be completely different. It's almost kind of
yeah.
like a jealousy type of thing.
Well, Bezos is like an anomaly too, man. Like my thing, the thing I struggle the most with is the fact that I understand capitalism and I understand the fact that you should be able to reap the rewards of something you built. I get that, right? I wouldn't want someone taking half of Man Meets Modern from me because I worked my ass off for it and I worked my ass off for it, right?
Right.
But there's also a portion of me, and this was like a wild, outlandish idea. I honestly think if you hit the billion, when you get to $1 billion, I think we should just hand out tokens that say you did it and you no longer have to work anymore. But with that, whatever you want, for the most part, unless it's like tons of weapons and shit, whatever you want is free, right? You want that boat, you want that car, it's free from whatever company you got it, and that company just writes it as a tax write off. And whatever you consistently been making, so like for example, Jeff Bezos would have hit his billion. Anything Jeff Bezos wants, you can just get done for free. Any company that he gets it from writes it off as a tax, charges the US government, but in return, anything more that's made than that billion, so it'd be the other $199 billion, gets distributed to the rest.
Do you
You don't
think
need
that that is
$100 billion.
Do you think like the best way to really kind of help out the poor is to leverage it out by taking from the wealthy though?
I don't think it shouldn't be Robin Hood style, right? It shouldn't be steal from the rich, give to the poor. I don't think that is. I think like people need to build themselves, but also I think part of it is they need the tools to build themselves, right? So if you have a poor, low income community, let's look at Detroit. You have Detroit. You have schools in Detroit that don't have the supplies, have way less supplies than schools in higher income areas. They have way more violence because the people in those areas need to make ends meet. And a lot of the ways to do that is through violent tendencies or things that are illegal, right? Now, what if we could take some of the money and have a more, first off, tax brackets aren't evenly distributed, right? What the wealthy gets taxed is nowhere near what the percentage of salary that the non-wealthy get taxed, right? So that's the first problem. But if you can take that money and put it in stuff like education, maybe we have less crime, right? There's studies that have been done. The more educated a place is, the less crime there is. If you can put it in places where it's like, okay, we have better libraries, we have better water systems, we have better this for our society, I think it helps more than it does to not do that.
Don't you just kind of hate it though that it's all boiling down to the dollar? You read any sort of headline about defunding, whether that means Planned Parenthood or the police or anything, or more money is being allocated toward autism research or climate change initiative or something like that. It really is the thing that is grabbing people is the money at the end of the day.
Yeah,
It's it's the
money's
driving force behind anything getting done.
money's a strange concept. When you really think about it, we get little, basically, their notes saying this is worth this, but it's not, right? It's a piece of paper. If you put it in its raw value, I think it'd be great if we went back to a bartering system. I think it'd be great that's like, okay, you want to live here? I need my lawn mowed twice a week. So you can live there, but come mow my lawn. Or like, you want to live there? Oh, you're also good at building cars? Like, like fix my car when I need it. Like, I think a bartering system would be cool, just like even for like a week, just to see how it works out, right? Like,
That
you
could be
want that new
interesting too. Yeah.
TV?
Mhm.
You got to give something up for the new TV. I think that's way more. I think it almost makes more sense, right? It keeps from another major issue. It keeps from people creating this mass consumption that we do, right? I like things. Don't get me wrong. I love my things. I got laptops, computers, Xboxes, TVs. But I also think there's a certain point to where it's like people get things just to get things, right? And like are just like, and I'm guilty of it. I've gotten things where I've gotten them and I've used them once and I don't use them. I bought a t-shirt and it sat in my closet and I wore it once, right? I've like, there's tons of people, those cases, and that's not what I'm talking about. I think there are literally times where people are like, yeah, fuck it, let's just buy it. And
Yeah,
like,
the things that I want later on in life, I want them to almost kind of create a personality within me or bring out the best in me.
right,
I mean, I'm trying to think of some goals that I have, like just in the back of my mind. Like, for example, I'd like to have a lake house someday. And the reason I want one is because I want to create a great lifestyle for not only myself, but for anybody who I bring over to that lake house or within my own family. I have a place where people can congregate together and just have a really great time together. And of course, having a couple toys along the way, like a boat or a jet ski, is just going to amplify that experience and make it all the more enjoyable.
100%. But you don't need 10 boats.
No, not at all. I
And
mean,
that's what I'm talking about, right? Like there are people that literally just have 10 boats for fucking shits and giggles. And like that's just unnecessary.
the mass consumption of things I think is definitely something that drives people up the walls. But yeah, if it when it comes down to any sort of empathy, whether that could be anything with any item that you choose to really be a big part in your life, whether that's a lake house or a boat or anything, if you have the intention to make those items bring out the best within yourself and other people, then by all means, like it is something that is going to help your lifestyle in the end.
Definitely. And yeah, that's huge. If it is bettering your lifestyle, the more power to you. I'm not telling people to stop buying things, but there is a certain point to where it's like, I don't know. I feel like even if I made $1 million, there'd be a certain point where it's like, do I really need it though? Like, you know what I mean? Like, I still would ask that question to myself, right?
I would
You know,
never let my money just sit in a bank account though. Like,
no,
of
no, no. I
course
don't
I'll
want to
let
die
it.
with money.
Yeah, of course I'll stack it up and everything, but the way I'm trying to go about handling all the money that I've acquired over the years from various jobs, and I want to at least invest a lot of that into stuff that will have a return on investment, but also bring about all the hobbies that I really want to get interested in. My brother and I are always talking about getting an LLC, like a real estate investment LLC going to really kind of have something to constantly work on and something that we can both grow a passion for and really just like I mentioned earlier, bring out the best within ourselves and really keep our minds stimulated because we're constantly at work on something.
I applied for, or I applied for a long time ago, some real estate jobs, way back when I think back in college. And it's real estate's always intriguing, right? Because one of the greatest ways to make money in this country is we're one of the only countries you can actually own land, own a chunk of land and a property to yourself. It's a really great way to make money. Uh, and it's, I don't know, I fuck with real estate. I think real estate's cool.
You don't even need a freaking degree for it too. That's the thing. You just go and take maybe like a essentially a summer class. I don't know how long it really takes. I haven't really looked too deep into it, but
It
I
depends
mean, I
on your
don't
state.
people you don't need a college degree for shit like this, but you can end up, flipping houses and making a shitload of money.
Yeah, I remember I always wanted to do it in California because I've always wanted to live here. And back when I looked at it, it was like 5 to 6 months until I could get my license. How long it takes, but like it's like a semester. Right? It's a semester of school.
You ever see Selling Sunset?
No, I try so hard not to watch those shows. I'm gonna be honest.
There's something about it. I remember a buddy of mine showed it to me, and we were at his house, and we had a bunch of friends all together, guys and girls, and we wanted to at least get something going just to kind of relax to. And for some reason, Selling Sunset came up, and it's a very interesting show because while the glamorous lifestyle within California and all those multi-million dollar homes is intriguing to watch, it's still got that reality TV aspect that is so dumb to the point where it's mildly entertaining. All this side stuff about the real estate agents relationship. Like, why should I really care about that? But I mean, it can serve a purpose for sure, but the entertainment is there at its core, I'll say.
Isn't that crazy that people care? We care so much about what other people are doing that like that's entertaining, right? Like shit, like Jersey. I love Jersey Shore, but like that shit was entertaining because you just care so much about what dumb shit other people are getting into.
That's the beauty of reality TV. It's something that can be mildly relatable, but at the same time, just have uh, the utmost ridiculous matter that could really make us laugh
Definitely.
and be all the more intrigued by.
I'm a I love TV. I'm a film buff, man. I think I am. I love movies. I love TV. I love like just the well crafted story behind something. Like you can tell people. You ever watch Peaky Blinders?
I haven't, but literally everybody in my family has been telling me to watch that.
Such a great fucking
Get
show.
into it too.
Absolutely wonderful. Amazing show. I loved Game of Thrones up until the last season. And the last season wasn't bad. It just compared when you like compare it to the rest,
Mhm.
you're just like, what the fuck was this? Because it was just an amazing like story. And
I
like
hate that it pissed so many people off though with that last season. I can't imagine like how many people were just such diehard fans, and then at the end they were kind of just either turned off completely, still scratching their heads, or just kind of cut Game of Thrones out of their life. That just sucks that people spent years and years and years putting this
so many
story
years.
together, creating this world, only for fans to be left with such mixed reactions with this. Or
Literally the
honestly,
one
I think it's universally despised. I haven't talked to
yeah,
a single person that digs that final season.
that that show took so long to make and was on so long. The one actress went from being like 12 to like 22 or whatever. Like she grew up literally through the show. Like they were
I
able
bet.
to like they didn't have to change actresses. Like she just kept playing the role and growing up. Like it's insane. Yeah, it was ridiculous. I still recommend watching it because up until then, like you will not regret your journey. And then like that last one, you're like, oh fuck.
That's
Like,
what I that's yeah, like what do you say to somebody that wants to start watching Game of Thrones, realizes that they have 80 hours of content that they got to sit through, only to be disappointed as hell in the end?
I would tell them the old saying, it's about the journey, not the destination.
Yeah, I I guess
In
that's
reality,
probably the
yeah.
best response I could hear with something like that.
The endings are great. Endings help wrap up stories, but like at the end of the day, when I think of a show, I feel like I never think of the beginning or the ending. I always think of like the show. You know what I mean? Like what happened in the show, right? People never talk about what is it? Fuck. You remember back in the day when you had to do that, like the climax, the peak or
Oh, like
whatever?
rising action or
Yeah,
falling.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
see what you're saying. The yeah,
People
the
never talk about down here. They always talk about the rising action and the climax, right? And like that's the extent.
Yeah, I guess people shouldn't really have any right to bitch about an ending because you really think about it, it is hard to stick the landing with any movie, show, sitcom, anything. That ending
Uh,
is God, that's got to be tough. I mean, they really got to screen that to so many people just to get their overall thoughts on how they should go about ending it because, like you said, created this whole world. You watch these people grow from 12 to 22. How the hell do you just end it?
Yeah, yeah. It's it's crazy, man. I can imagine growing up on a show. People get fucked up from that. Just like
You do.
you can just
Yeah,
be
child actors. Yeah, they've for the most part. I mean, there's probably, yeah, I mean, you could maybe count on one hand the amount of people that have made it out and they're doing well for themselves.
it's
Very
insane.
few.
I get it. Like you're young, you have way more money than like a kid. iCarly made like 180 grand an episode.
Yeah, but look what they're doing now. Like, which ones are still? I mean, which ones are gonna go on to further successes, or are they just gonna be typecast for the rest of their lives? That's the problem with sitcoms, is that these actors become so attached to these roles and they are so popular for it that they'll never be able to shake it off. I think it's like it's the Friends syndrome. I think it's what they call it or something like that. There's
Yeah.
there's
People,
something
they,
about it where all these
they don't
actors
do
can't
anything
get
else.
work because they're always going to be viewed as that person.
They still make 20 million a year from that show.
That's true. So they
Jack,
probably don't give a fuck if someone realizes, oh,
yeah.
it's just the
I'll
funny
be
girl
Joey
from
from
Friends.
Friends all fucking day. You're gonna pay me 20 million a year the rest of my life.
That's true. Yeah, you're right. You're absolutely right about
What's
that,
up? You
man.
want me to play the role again? Right in front of you? I got you. Seal the deal.
Right. Like I wonder if, I mean, I haven't really done that much research on who it may have affected, but if somebody has been typecast to the point where they just receive nothing but hatred for anything that they try to put themselves out for, to the point where they just have to give up their acting career for good. I mean, that's got to be something too. I mean, I don't know if that's ever been done. It might have been, where you're always going to be viewed as this person, and anything different that you try to do gets backlash from people, so therefore your passion for it just disappears.
I think a lot of that happens. I feel like it happens the most to comedy actors, right? Like Jonah Hill can act in dramas, but
Mhm.
so many people only consider him a comedy actor that when he did go to dramas, people were skeptical of watching him because they didn't want to see him do a serious role. You know what I mean? There was the only one that I know that people truly respected was his role in Wolf of Wall Street. And he had a pretty good role in War Dogs, but I think War Dogs people were skeptical to be like, it's like Jonah Hill. Is he really like a serious actor? But like
I would
Wolf of
say,
Wall Street, no one questioned it. He got into character real well.
yeah, and I think he's actually a really good example. I'm glad you brought him up because he's always been viewed as the fat, funny guy from Superbad. And it did take him a while to really shake it off. I've seen interviews where he's like, this is not what I want to be viewed as for the rest of my life. And then when he got skinnier for, like, what was it, 21 Jump Street? And
Yeah.
then from there, I mean, people still criticized him for, they just wanted, oh, let's just go back to fat Jonah Hill because that's what I liked watching. And then, I mean, he's kind of gone through an interesting weight transformation throughout the years, but I'd still dig his serious roles too. You ever watch Moneyball? I think he
Yeah, Moneyball's a
kills it
great.
in
He
that.
does great in that show or that
Yeah,
movie. Yeah,
absolutely.
and
It's possible. It can be done. You
that shit
can.
sucks, man. That shit is like insane, especially because like there's always a stain of what he looked like, right? Like I was fat. Like I was fat as shit coming through high school, right? I was like 5'8", 250 pounds, like just fucking little meatball rolling around. And
Mhm.
but no one like has a whole production video that millions of people love to watch me be fat, right? But he does, man. Super bad. I still watch that movie. That movie is how old, and that's a hilarious movie.
That is probably my favorite comedy of all time. Not gonna lie.
It's so fucking funny. But you only see that Jonah Hill, right? You always will see fat Jonah Hill, and that's when you're like, that's when the association starts. And that's tough, man. He talks about all the time how like he hated the way people treated him when he was fat. And like that's fucked up on the world's part to like just be like, yo, like there's so many shitty people in the world that just want to watch other people suffer to make themselves feel better. I
That
think
circles back to like what we were talking about earlier. Like when you hear somebody mention something that they're passionate about, and then you kind of just shit on them with follow-up questions that they don't have the answers to, just because you want to see them kind of have that rebuttal. And I'd imagine that's what Jonah Hill went through for sure. But I guess if you catch somebody at their most passionate moments and you really see that they put so much effort into it, it can be enough to change your mind. I think that's just the power of film too.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. I think it's important, man. I think like as men, I don't think we should put each other down anymore. I don't think I don't think that's a necessary thing. I think at one point in evolution, it was necessary to be better than the person standing next to you. That was literally for mating, right? The strongest and most badass hunter got the, either the richest or the most pretty girl, right? Like that's how it worked, right?
Mhm.
And you need to be the best. Like that's how the shit fucking works. It still works like that for a lot of animals, right? The biggest seal, the strongest and biggest seal gets the harem, is what they call it, right? Gets to mate with all as many seals as he wants. But like we don't need that anymore, right? Like
I
there's
think if
so many
people
fucking people. The world's so developed. Like you don't. No one needs to be fucking Macho Man Randy Savage going to hunt some caribou with his bare hands. Like granted, Macho Man didn't hunt caribou, but like I'm just saying, like super jacked. Like no one gives a shit anymore, right?
Right. If people focused, like we mentioned earlier, about independence, if people could just worry about being the best version of themselves that they can possibly be, if they see glimmers of hope and self improvement, then I think that they're going to be on the right path. And it all comes down to their perspective, too, and how the affirmation from other people can really elevate them as well.
Definitely, I think you're right. All right, man.
Solid
I
conversation. Solid talk, man. I dig this stuff. I think what you're doing right now is it's resonating with people. I think if you were to just continue the conversation and just grow the conversation, then I'm telling you, man meets modern is going to be something that everybody's going to have.
Oh yeah, oh yeah. Thanks, I appreciate it, man. I love keeping it growing. I love the support. Um, you know, you're huge. We can talk after this, but before we get going on, you know what it's time for. If you listen to the podcast, everyone knows what it's time for. It's time for the craziest thing you've ever done.
Oh God. Oh,
Whatever you
crazy.
feel comfortable with, make it crazy. But like, also, if you have a job and don't want to make it too crazy, I get that.
Yeah, I guess I wasn't even expected for that type of question. I mean crazy shit like because I remember listening to you and your dad talk about this on the first episode of your podcast.
Yep,
And
homeboy was shooting bottle rockets at each other.
yeah, it was the bottle rockets. And the craziest thing could really be boiled down to a plethora of different things. It can be often what got you in the most trouble. It could be a life-threatening situation of some sort. Um, my God, I'm actually gonna have to take like a good 10 to 20 seconds thinking about this. The
Go
craziest
for
thing
it.
I've ever done. Oh man.
Go ahead and think about it. Tony, Useless.degrees, doing huge. Don't forget to check him out. Useless.degrees on all streaming services that you could possibly fucking think of. Subscribe. He's using Anchor, so he set up he makes money when people listen, so it helps him. It helps support him and make sure his podcast can stay up. Definitely a great listen. Also, check out our episode on there for sure.
I'm gonna talk about the most traumatic childhood moment of my life
Okay.
because that kind of stood out to me. In terms of the craziest, I really am not sure what you're looking for, but this was something that almost kind of scarred me, and I guess more of like a fun fact about me, if if you will. But I've only flown a kite once in my life, and it was the first time and the last time for me. And while I was doing that, I was I was on the playground with my dad and my little brother. We were so little at the time, and my dad's showing me how to fly a kite, and I'm thinking it's the coolest shit ever. He's showing my brother and I how to do it. And so, he said, here, you take this and you run with it, have the kite flying high up in the air and go run around and have fun with it. So I'm trying to run and get this kite going and everything. And then Next thing I know, I hear my dad yell, "Stop, stop, stop." And I'm thinking, why, what did I do? What's wrong? And then I look, and the fucking kite string is wrapped around my brother's neck. And the guy is literally just, my little brother's just about to pass out on the ground, just choking from the kite that I'm flying.
Oh my gosh.
Since then, I've never flown a kite before, and I honestly don't want to because I'm just gonna think about how I almost just slit my brother's throat with that kite string.
There you go, everybody. If you ever want to scare Tony, just fly a kite.
Yeah. I don't know.
That's
The scary
crazy,
thing
man.
is the fact that it on the surface it seems like a very fun activity, but I just ruined it for my own for my own self and my own well being.
That's
What are
crazy.
you gonna do, man? What are you gonna do?
Oh no, that's great. Before we go ahead and again use this degree on podcast. Where can people find you socially?
Yeah, so you can follow my Instagram, Useless.degrees. You can follow me on Twitter at Useless.degrees _. You can like my Facebook page, Useless Degrees, and you can just keep on listening to all these episodes. Share with your friends and family. If you find it interesting, reach out to me with some questions that you might have, and I'll definitely get back to you on that.
All right, awesome. Well, thanks, Tony. I appreciate you doing the podcast, man. It was great.
Yeah, absolutely, man. Good luck with everything. Thank you so much for having me. Really enjoyed our time, man.
It's a great fucking day.